seen blood spill the same floor he was left on.
That is a direct reference.
Oh, absolutely. Left on the floor. Jimmy wasn't left on the floor. Jimmy, bless him, was so scared he hid in a cupboard, and his last breath was in a cupboard in a pool of blood.
This story has so many layers to it that we're going to get through, but towards the end we'll get into a point where a mother is reacting to a now drill rapper talking about how it felt to take her son's life, which is just wild. To start this story off, we have to go all the way back to 10th of May 2008 at Three Cooks Bakery in Burnt Ash Hill, southeast London. Jimmy, along with his brother Harry, had gone down to the bakery and shops to buy a lottery ticket and a fizzy drink. A confrontation arose with Fahri, who was in the shop lighting a cigarette. Fahri had lit one cigarette and was about to light another when Jimmy asked him not to smoke because he had asthma. The request led to him being aggressive.
He offered to fight them outside the shop, but they refused. Fahri tried hitting them with a bottle, but was thrown out. He smashed his way back in, brandishing an advertising sign before throwing the glass dish at Jimmy's head.
Fahri then picked up a Pyrex glass dish from the counter and threw it at Jimmy. The dish smashed upon hitting Jimmy and a shard of glass cut into his neck, severing his jugular vein in a main artery. Despite immediate medical attention, Jimmy bled to death in the bakery. Paramedics had arrived but could not save Jimmy. He died at the scene.
Have continued their work at the bakery where Jimmy died. Jimmy Mizen's family are back at home now, having been to see his body. They're already making plans for his funeral next week, but they're adamant it won't be a dark, solemn affair. It'll be vibrant, a celebration of 16 years of what his brother told me was a top-quality bloke.
Apparently, the Mizen family had previous dealings with Jake. In 2001, he walked up to Jimmy's brother Harry in the street and asked for money before punching him in the stomach. Harry was 10 years old and handed over 20p, but told his mother about the incident and she made a complaint to the school. 2 years later, on April the 1st, 2003, he saw Harry and demanded to know why he grasped. Harry tried to escape, but he grabbed hold of his shirt and threatened to beat him up before punching him in the chest. It said police visited Jake Fahri's home in 7th of May 2003 to speak to him about the incident and gave him a harassment warning.
The police say throughout his school days, Fahri was violent and intimidating. 3 years previously, he was convicted of assault after he punched and kicked a girl in a cafe. 2 years before that, he received a police warning after Jimmy Mizen's brother complained he had assaulted him.
He went to 5 different weapon selections, for instance. Came backwards and forwards twice to pick a fight with Jimmy. And the violence was extreme, unprovoked and excessive. That surely gives an indication of the type of dangerous individual Jake Fahri is.
Jimmy could hardly have been more different to his killer, who his family say they can't bring themselves to hate.
One of the most graphic scenes that day was Mizen staggered to the rear of the bakery into a cupboard to shield himself from the possibility of Jake Fahri returning. When his elder brother Tommy, was 27 at the time, found him, Mizen collapsed in his brother's arms and was afraid of the attack. When his brother tried to open the cupboard door he was in, he held it closed, thinking that Jake Fahri was coming in. Their mother Margaret arrived soon after and fainted at the sight of her son. When she regained consciousness, she called her husband Barry, who arrived an hour later to find out that his son had died.
But for his mother, there is deep regret that it was not her who cradled her dying son, but Jimmy's brother Tommy, who was clearly distressed as he revisited the place where he tried to save his brother's life.
I suppose I'd like to have had him in my arms, but I'm comforted by the fact he was in my son's arms. My son wouldn't let me go near him. He just said, "Mum, he's okay, just wait."
Fahri initially fled the scene but was arrested shortly after in his nearby home. He reportedly claimed he didn't know Jimmy was her, thinking he had just hit him with the dick. Fahri was charged with murder, with the prosecution arguing that his actions showed intent or at least recklessness that could foreseeably lead to death or serious injury. During the trial in Old Bailey, he admitted to manslaughter but denied murder, claiming he had no intention of causing such harm. His defence argued that the act was spontaneous and not premeditated.
This guy might get off for it, but if he does get off, therefore he's proved innocent, this guy, that means what they're saying about Jimmy is, in the eyes of the court, the law, true.
To claim self-defence when the fact of the matter is you started the trouble. No, the two people, me and Jimmy, didn't ask for the fight. We said no. He left the shop and come back in and then started, hit Jimmy and stuff like that. So obviously that was self-defence for us because we had to hit him back.
Jake Fahri picked up a glass Pyrex bowl and smashed it with such force into Jimmy Mizen's face that a piece of broken glass broke one of his arteries. Jake Fahri denies murder.
Chris Maylett today said it's unusual for a jury to convict a 19-year-old murder.
sick of trying to justify things. There's no reason to be justifying anything. Jimmy was a good boy.
Conviction. Despite the defence, the jury convicted him of murder, believing throwing a heavy glass dish at someone's head constituted intent for at least serious harm. He was sentenced to imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years. The judge highlighted the senselessness of the act, emphasising that the trivial argument had led to a young life being taken.
Jimmy's family applauded when they heard the guilty verdict. They cried and hugged each other. A sharp contrast to the lack of reaction from Jake Fahri. He was only moved to respond as he left court. He looked into the public gallery and said, "Don't worry," to his mother. He'll spend at least 14 years in jail. The police described Jimmy Mizen and Jake Fahri as being worlds apart. But on that fatal day, their worlds collided with the worst possible consequences.
We would like to speak about the character of Jimmy, as so far no information about him has been heard, apart from he came from a loving family. It's been painful to hear him described as a huge young man, an insinuation that he was of an aggressive disposition. He was a fine young man and a pleasure to be with. He was polite and always seemed to be happy. He enjoyed life. His loss is immense, not only to us, but to all his friends. Jimmy was the shining star in our family and will always be remembered with a smile. We are so proud to have been his parents. God bless you, Jimmy.
It comes to light that this wasn't the first offence that Jake had committed. He had a string of convictions involving robbery and violence. On the 19th of July 2004, he was given a 9-month referral order for taking part in a gang knife-point robbery of a schoolboy at Falconwood railway station in Bexley, Greater London. On the 4th of January 2005, he was given a 12-month supervision order for the robbery of an adult in Greenwich Park on the 13th of April 2004. On the 13th of April 2006, he was given an 18-month supervision order for an unprovoked assault on a girl in a street and burglary. 14 years ago, when he had first gone to jail, the family was already speaking out, saying he's making Facebook accounts from inside, which is not allowed, and they was trying to grieve their son, and he was still on Facebook.
Not long after the trial of Jimmy's killer last year, was found guilty, sentenced to life imprisonment. Facebook sites then started to appear purporting supporting him, saying he was innocent, etc. I've not got a problem with that. They then deteriorated into personal attacks on my family, and I'm very supportive of my family. My family are still trying to come to terms with what happened here. And we found them very offensive, very intimidating. We then decided we'd try and do something about this. Similar problem has been there for the Kinsella family, as you said. And their one was highlighted in a national paper a couple of weeks ago. They've been trying for many months as well to get Facebook pages removed. We then stood alongside them, along with the other families. We've formed a small group called Families United. That culminated in a meeting last night with Jack Straw, and we thank him for that, and representatives from Facebook. We were then allowed to tell the people who actually were in control of these situations our problems. They've now agreed to look into it, and we were very pleased with the outcome of the meeting. We would suggest now that where there are instances of victims of homicide, their families being taunted in whatever way, whether from prison or by supporters outside prison, to now speak through their victim liaison officer, and these pages should be taken down.
A couple years into his sentence on the 2nd of November, Jake was actually stabbed by Sean Mercer, the murderer of Reece Jones, in prison. Fahri was taken to hospital and survived the attack. Sean Mercer, age 16, was the person that took the life of that 11-year-old boy who was caught in crossfire and murdered in Liverpool whilst walking home from football practice. In the same year, his family was starting their foundation. The Mizen Foundation in 2009 was set up. The Jimmy Mizen Foundation, charity based in Lee Green. The charity has worked with schools across the United Kingdom to help young people to make their local communities safer. In 2010, the tablet named the Mizen family among Britain's most influential Roman Catholics. Mizen's parents, Barry and Margaret, were both appointed to the member of the Order of British Empire, MBE, in 2014's New Year honours for services to young people in London. Jake Fahri was actually released from prison in June 2023, and he decided to pursue a rap career which would stir up even more controversy and bring this all back for the family, which we're going to get into.
For bringing 5k parcel with clinging. Ask M, I really had it ripping. Try get him on some petty shit like Fredo in Dubai. I seen petty turn techie and it ends up with a life. That's a knife in your back for every time you played it nice.
On one track, he raps, "Never understood a life till you took a life."
So like I said, he was pursuing a rap career, a drill rapper rapping about many different things, and he was actually driving to the spots, the media where he filmed these videos to prove he wasn't allowed there because of his license conditions.
There are 4 boroughs within London he's not allowed in, Greenwich being one of them. So I hope that really is being investigated. And so if he has breached his licence, then yes, he needs to go back to prison and really think about his life.
Things would get even worse for him when the Sun newspaper would decide to drive to the exact spots in his music video, then correlate it to where he's allowed to potentially send him back to jail.
I'm standing in the Blackhall Point Draw Dock in the shadow of the O2 Arena in Greenwich. It's southeast London, and while this is normally a very insignificant piece of land, was part of our exclusive investigation into the identity of the drill rapper 10, who yesterday we unmasked as Jake Fahri, the killer of teenager Jimmy Mizen. We can now reveal that this dock here is where Jake Fahri filmed one of his music videos for his violent, drug-filled drill rap songs. And what's more is that Jake Fahri is banned from going into this part of London as part of an exclusion order made after he was released in June 2023.
Look, said he wants to be a killer, hit him with some insight. Starts with murder trials, prosecution wearing pinstripes. Even if you bust the case, even if you slip right, ends with him coming for your neck, protect your windpipe.
In some of his videos, like we just seen, he has an actual mask on so you can't see his face, but others you can kind of tell that is him through the balaclavas that he's wearing. Not only that, he has tattoos as well, which makes it so easy for the police, or even the Sun in this case, do an investigation into who he is and identify him.
This dock was the shoot point for 10's video for the track Dirty Game, one of his most popular songs, and which was published on the GRN Daily YouTube channel, one of the biggest outputs for drill and grind music in this country. That track got thousands of views and many admiring comments from fans who had absolutely no idea who he was. In the track, lyrics include more references to violence, more references to drugs, more references to severe criminal charges like murder.
He's not allowed in certain boroughs. There are 4 boroughs within London he's not allowed in.
But even worse than the Sun just looking into him, the mainstream media like ITV News and other platforms were breaking down all of his lyrics and correlating it to what happened with Jimmy, the victim in this case, basically saying he's bragging and rapping about what happened. And the mum was interviewed by the Sun shortly after.
Since Jake has come out of prison, I suppose I've always been expecting something, but not this. This is the lowest thing he could possibly have done.
We are actually going to get a response from 10 himself in an issued statement and messages that I even shared when I reached out to see what happened after this investigation by the mainstream media. I'm going to get into his mother's response now. Never have I seen a mother reacting to lyrics like this. It's wild when they're reading out to her.
Some of those lyrics included "Stick it on a man and watch him melt like Ben and Jerry's." "Sharpen up my blade, I've got to keep those necessary. Stay alert and kept it ready. Any corner could be deadly." In another one, he says, "Ever see a man's soul fly from his eyes and his breath gone? I wanted more, it made it less wrong. Seeing blood spilled, same floor he was left on." We know that the circumstances of Jimmy's death, very sadly, that there was a pool of blood on the floor. And that is a direct reference.
Oh, absolutely. Left on the floor. Jimmy wasn't left on the floor. Jimmy, bless him, was so scared he hid in a cupboard, and his last breath was in a cupboard, in a pool of blood. It doesn't matter whether he's talking about Jimmy or not. They are terrible words for anyone, and for our young people to have to hear them. I think Jake Fahri is just trying to make himself look like a celebrity. I pray with all my heart this doesn't do that. But those words, yeah, he is probably referencing Jimmy, but he will say he's not. There's a disclaimer on one of his films, and I'm no different to anyone else. I had to watch some of them. And a disclaimer. I mean, what is that about? I think he should be ashamed of himself. And I am sure his parents, I would like to think, are ashamed of him.
When this story hit the mainstream media about him rapping and bragging, many people got dragged into it. Marcus Rashford, for taking a photo with 10, known as Jake as well, had to put out a statement and defend himself about the situation, saying he doesn't know who he is. He just took a photo with a fan. He's not associated or friends with that guy. He has a belly on when he raps and committed this crime 15 years ago. He's been removing these videos since the case, and people were saying, does he have to do a CRB check on everyone who asks for a pic? And also BBC DJs were getting backlash as well for putting him on the platform. Again, a lot of them didn't know his situation. BBC News was out in the rapper and his history. Meanwhile, their radio station was platforming him and putting his music on it, and they had to issue a statement as well. For the first time ever, we heard from Jake, now known as a rapper called Official101 on Instagram, saying, I've become aware that false information is being spread about my lyrics, suggesting that they reference the victim of my case, which I was incarcerated for 15 years over. I want to express my deepest apologies to the Mizen family. If my words have caused any harm or distress, I want to make it clear that none of my lyrics are aimed at the victim or his family. While some may interpret them that way, my lyrics are drawn from my personal experiences in prison and the stories of others in similar circumstances. They're an artistic expression of the life that I knew during that time. I do not glorify these experiences, but they're a part of my past that shaped me. For 15 years, I've been portrayed in the media as a monster, but I've never publicly addressed the incident until now. I want to set the record straight. I did not leave my home that day with the intention of harming anyone. I went to a local bakery where I encountered the victim, who arrived after me. The two brothers provoked and attacked me, and I reacted in self-defense. I was 18 at the time, and Jimmy was 16. While I acted out in anger, I never intended for anyone to die. I threw a dish in frustration, never imagining it would result in such a tragic outcome. Since my release, I've focused on rebuilding my life and adjusting to the outside world. I have had no further trouble with the law and have been pursuing a music career, a passion that has given me hope for a better future. However, my efforts are now being threatened by false media narratives. I've served my full sentence, including an additional year, and all I want is a chance to move forward with my life. I want to thank the BBC for giving me an opportunity and platform to share my story and for recognizing my potential as an artist. I deeply regret that their network has been dragged into controversy over this matter. This situation could have been handled directly with me or management team before it became a public issue. I sincerely apologize to the BBC for any inconvenience caused. Local reports have stated that the brothers attacked me with a barrage of punches simply because I didn't move out of their way to leave the shop. At that moment, I acted in self-defense, feeling overwhelmed and outnumbered. They were bigger and stronger than me, and I believe they took advantage of my smaller stature. I regret what happened more than words can express, and I carry the weight of it every single day. But I've served my time, and now I hope for a chance to live my life without being constantly vilified or misunderstood. The rule is everyone deserves a second chance after serving their sentence, can do what they want, but it's mainly the lyrics that's caused a lot of damage to him now. He has been recalled to prison since this situation, mainly because of stepping into areas he cannot go. We cannot prove that he's directly talking about the victim through his lyrics, like he said his previous encounters he had, but it's obvious the family are going to think that when he's talking about violence and seeing someone bleeding out.
I see petty turn techie and it ends up with a life. That's a knife in your back for every time you played it nice. Cause it's done. Type of numbers that they're giving in them trials now is dumb. Free the old and free the young. Grew up underneath a slum. Hung jury ain't the one. Cause next time they give them 38s now. Say goodbye to 28 wrecks. If you're gonna do it right. You gotta take steps. Old school. Rocket Aquamaster and an A-Frex. So many knives in my back, there's no space. They giving 38s now. Say goodbye to 28 wrecks. If you're gonna do it.
When doing this video, I reached out to his team and they said, yeah, right now the media only knows one side. He'll have his say when he comes home and it needs to be addressed. The media has shown him to look like the bad guy. I hope your documentary doesn't indicate the same. They're trying to stop his music. It's only his passion. I did say in my documentary I would be fair, and there is pretty much no update now, they also said, on when he's going to come back from that recall. On their lyrics, their management team had said, I hear it, but the lyrics are generally not. Although it may appear that way that he's rapping about the victim, most of them are him speaking in third person. Talking of rap lyrics, in my recent video I done a breakdown of K-Coke and Nine's recent situation, a part 2 on the back and forth between them rappers.